Left behind. The last hope of a dying space station. Marcus Chen stood at the observation deck of the Zulian's Deep Space Research Station, watching the distant ships grow smaller with each passing moment. His EVA suit, though designed for long hours of space exploration and maintenance, suddenly felt like a prison. The metal plates of his suit clung tightly to his body, each breath a reminder of the dwindling oxygen supply in his helmet. The Zulians, those superior beings, had just abandoned him here, left to die in the cold, dark silence of space. Their ships had drifted away, like ghosts fading into the vast emptiness of the cosmos, and Marcus had been forsaken. He couldn't fathom the cruelty. In his years of working with alien technologies, he had encountered condescension and disdain from countless species, but none as direct as the Zulians. Their arrogance was profound, their belief that no human could ever truly grasp their advanced knowledge. They had offered him a simple, almost dismissive message before departing. Your species lacks the cognitive capacity to comprehend our superior technology. Die with dignity, human. It was a bitter, cutting blow, one that echoed through the hollow chambers of his mind as the last flickers of the ship's light disappeared. And yet, as much as Marcus wanted to curse their arrogance, he refused to surrender to it. He was a human, and in the face of despair, that meant something. The Zulians may have left him for dead, but Marcus knew one thing. Survival was in his blood. He wasn't some helpless, disposable cog in their grandiose machines. No, he was a fighter, an engineer, a master of machines and technology. And now he was going to prove just how far the human spirit could go. Marcus slowly turned from the observation window, his breath fogging up his helmet as his eyes scanned the surroundings. The station, once a thriving hub of intergalactic research, was now a decaying relic of a failed mission. The walls were lined with malfunctioning equipment and expired systems, their once glorious lights flickering and dimming in disarray. The once pristine metal floors were scratched and dented, evidence of the neglect the Zulians had left behind. It was a graveyard of technology, but in its bones, Marcus could see potential. I can fix this, he thought, the spark of inspiration igniting in his mind. The Zulians may have considered their technology superior, but Marcus was determined to show them the heart of humanity. He had worked with alien technologies before, often overcoming obstacles with nothing more than his wits and resourcefulness. Now, he would have to do it again, alone. But this time, it wouldn't be just for survival. This time, he would rebuild the station, make it stronger, more advanced, and more human than ever before. The digital interface on his wrist flickered to life as he accessed the station's schematics. He needed to understand what he was working with, what resources he had left. Power levels were low, dangerously so. The life support systems had almost completely failed, and there was no telling how much time he had before the entire station's infrastructure collapsed. But Marcus wasn't fazed. With quick precision, he navigated through the interface, pulling up the blueprints for the station's core systems. He began calculating what he would need to salvage and repair. The Zulians had left behind their tools, their materials, and their advanced designs. But unlike the Zulians, Marcus knew the true value of ingenuity. Humanity wasn't defined by what it could build from perfect technology. It was defined by what it could create from the ashes of failure. His fingers danced across the controls, activating the repair drones left behind by the Zulians. The drones hummed to life, their lights blinking with purpose as they began to move through the station, responding to Marcus's commands. He would need them if he had any hope of restoring the station to full functionality. But there was one thing Marcus knew better than anything else. Every repair, every restoration of this dying station had to be done carefully. It wasn't just about fixing broken systems. It was about understanding how each component worked, how each failure had occurred, and how he could improve upon it. That was the true mark of human engineering. The Zulians might have had superior technology, but Marcus had something they never would. The heart of a creator, a builder who would stop at nothing to breathe new life into a forsaken place. He set to work immediately, his first priority being the life support systems. The air on the station was thick and stale, the oxygen levels dangerously low. But Marcus wasn't worried. He had survived harsher conditions. He tore into the walls, removing faulty conduits and repairing leaks in the central oxygen tanks. As the hours passed, Marcus's hands became slick with sweat and grease, his body exhausted from the physical labor. But the moment he activated the reconditioned life support system, the station's air quality improved. A deep sigh of relief escaped his lips as he drew in a fresh breath. One victory down, he thought. But there was no time to waste. The station needed power, and the reactors were in dire need of repairs. The Zulians' technology was based on advanced power systems that Marcus barely understood, but he knew enough to make it work. The station's reactors, once humming with the energy of distant stars, now lay dormant. The station's auxiliary power source had long been exhausted, but Marcus was determined. He knew how to work with the station's solar arrays, repurposing them to funnel energy back into the reactor systems. Every panel, every component, became an asset in his hands. He could see it now. The station, once abandoned, now reawakening under the hands of a human engineer. As Marcus worked tirelessly, the station began to flicker back to life. The lights grew brighter, the hum of energy coursed through the walls, and the once still machinery came to life under his careful ministrations. But Marcus knew that this was just the beginning. Every step forward, no matter how small, was another victory against the Zulians' arrogance. He wasn't just fixing this station, he was turning it into something greater. And with each repair, he felt his confidence grow. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about showing the universe what humanity was truly capable of. And so, as the hours passed into days, Marcus Chen continued his work. He repaired systems, reworked the engines, and gradually transformed the dying station into something vibrant once again. Every moment was a reminder that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its advanced technology, but in its capacity to adapt, overcome, and innovate when faced with the impossible. By the time the first week had passed, Marcus had made substantial progress. The station was no longer a dark, lifeless shell of its former self. It was now alive with purpose, and as Marcus stood in the control room, looking out into the endless expanse of space, he allowed himself a moment of pride. This station was no longer the Zulians' project. It was his, and he would make it stronger than ever before. The spark of innovation, finding purpose in the void. The days passed slowly aboard the deserted alien station. Every moment was a quiet reminder of Marcus Chen's isolation in the infinite void of space. The Zulians, in their arrogance, had presumed that their superior technology could stand untouched, that their advanced systems could continue functioning on their own. But here, in the silence of deep space, Marcus knew the truth. Technology alone was never enough. It was human ingenuity, adaptability, and the drive to improve that would make the difference. The first few days were the hardest. Marcus's hands ached from long hours spent repairing the failing infrastructure, and his body longed for rest. But sleep never came easily. His mind was always racing, never able to shut off, constantly calculating the next step in his plan. The station's core was still functional, but its systems were deteriorating quickly. Life support had been restored, but it was only a matter of time before something else would fail. Marcus knew that if he was going to survive, he had to think beyond mere repairs. He needed a vision, a new purpose. In the isolation of the station's vast corridors, the hum of ancient machinery began to inspire something inside him. There was potential everywhere, each broken system, each discarded tool. The Zulians may have considered their technology infallible, but Marcus understood something they never did. Technology was not an end in itself. It was a tool, one that could be reshaped, remade, and re-envisioned. And it was humanity's greatest strength to do just that. Marcus had spent years as an engineer, working with humans who shared the same relentless drive to innovate, to create. He knew that in the face of hardship, humans had the ability to adapt, learn, and find solutions to the impossible. The Zulians had underestimated him, and now he would show them just what humans could accomplish. He wasn't just fixing the station, he was going to turn it into something that would make the Zulians question everything they thought they knew about superiority. The station's central hub had long been shut down. The alien consoles were dark, their once complex interfaces now little more than dead screens. But Marcus wasn't intimidated. He wasn't beholden to the sleek alien designs. Instead, he began tearing apart the consoles, stripping them down to their core components. The advanced circuits, the alien processors, were like a puzzle to him. With every part he removed, with every wire he reconnected, he saw the potential to make something even better. What the Zulians had left behind wasn't junk. It was a treasure trove of possibility. His mind raced with ideas. The station, though far from its prime, still had functional solar arrays. The energy reserves were low, but they weren't depleted entirely. It wasn't much, but it was enough for Marcus to get started. He had spent years working on solar-powered systems, adapting Earth-based technology to spacefaring vehicles. But this was different. This station was light years away from Earth. Its power systems were far more advanced, but also far more fragile. Marcus had to be careful. He had to respect the complexity of the Zulians' technology, while still adapting it to his own needs. He first turned his attention to the energy system. The station was equipped with a primary reactor that powered everything, but it was unstable, barely functioning at a fraction of its capacity. The alien reactor systems had been designed to harness cosmic energy, stars, black holes, and other exotic sources that humans couldn't even begin to fathom. Marcus, however, didn't need to understand the full depth of their theory. He just needed to understand how to make it work. With a mix of caution and confidence, Marcus started examining the reactor's energy conduits. He had worked with similar power systems before, though none as complex as this one. The reactor was made up of a series of powerful conduits that channeled raw energy through quantum fields. But the fields were unstable. When Marcus analyzed the reactor's failing components, he found that the quantum cores were overcharged. Too much energy was being funneled into them, causing a dangerous imbalance. He had to balance the load, redistribute the power, and stabilize the flow of energy. It wasn't easy. Every move had to be precise. Every wire connection had to be exact. But Marcus worked methodically, drawing on years of experience with energy systems. He recalibrated the reactor, carefully adjusting the quantum fields and diverting energy from the overcharged cores to the underutilized systems. Slowly, cautiously, the reactor began to hum back to life. The power levels remained steady, no longer fluctuating wildly between critical and minimal. When he finally activated the station's primary systems again, the station came to life with a low, steady hum. The lights flickered on, bright and powerful. The engines, once on the brink of failure, powered up with a soft, steady pulse. The once dying station now had energy, real energy, pulsing through its veins. Marcus stood in the control room, looking around as the familiar sounds of a functioning space station filled the air. For the first time in what felt like forever, there was hope. But Marcus knew this was only the beginning. The station needed more than just energy. It needed to be upgraded, transformed into something that would rival the best technological hubs in the galaxy. He needed to look beyond the basics of survival. He needed to push the boundaries of what was possible. The Zulians had underestimated him by thinking that their technology was beyond human comprehension. They had left behind advanced machinery, but they had failed to realize that true innovation wasn't about being the first to create something. It was about pushing the limits of what had already been created. The Zulians' designs were flawed, imperfect in ways that they had never considered. And now Marcus had the opportunity to fix them. He began revisiting the station's outer hull, the network of solar panels, communication systems, and sensor arrays that had long since gone dark. With each piece he touched, each adjustment he made, Marcus could feel himself growing more confident. The outer shell of the station was still intact, but there were weaknesses. He reinforced the solar arrays, enhancing their efficiency, adapting their output to be far more resilient against the constant radiation and cosmic storms that plagued deep space. Each adjustment he made wasn't just about repairing the station. It was about making it better, stronger, and more capable than it had ever been before. Hours turned into days, and Marcus's progress continued at a steady pace. He reprogrammed the station's communication arrays to allow for faster, more reliable long-range transmissions. He reinforced the station's shields, making them stronger against the cosmic forces that could tear them apart. The Zulians had left him to die, thinking he was incapable of understanding their superior technology. But Marcus had done more than just survive. He had begun the process of revitalizing the station, turning it into something the Zulians could never have imagined. One day, as Marcus stood in the observation deck, watching the vast expanse of stars outside, he realized something. The Zulians had built this station with a single goal: to study the galaxy's greatest mysteries, to push the boundaries of their own knowledge. But they had failed. They had abandoned the station, leaving it to decay in the cold void of space. It was a monument to their pride, their arrogance, and their inability to see beyond their own superiority. But Marcus had breathed new life into it. He had rebuilt it, not just to survive, but to thrive. And in doing so, he had shown the universe that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in its technology alone. It was in its heart, its resilience, and its unyielding will to rise above even the greatest of odds. The rebirth. Overcoming the challenges of isolation. Weeks had passed since Marcus had been abandoned on the alien station. Time in deep space moved differently, without the regular cycles of day and night, without any natural markers to divide one moment from the next. The passing days began to blur. Yet even as isolation gnawed at the edges of his resolve, Marcus continued to work. It was no longer just about survival. It had become a calling, a deep, almost spiritual connection with the station he was rebuilding. He wasn't simply fixing machinery. He was transforming something that had been left to rot into a beacon of human resilience. The progress he had made so far was astounding. The life support systems hummed steadily, the reactor was stable, and the solar arrays had been reinforced. The station, once a ghost of a failed project, was now alive with the hum of power. But it wasn't enough. Marcus's ambition wasn't to just bring the station back to its basic function. He had something greater in mind. If the Zulians had believed their technology was beyond reproach, Marcus was determined to show them that humanity's ingenuity could take what they had built and push it beyond even their wildest expectations. The Zulians had thought him incapable of understanding their systems, but Marcus was proving them wrong every day. Their technology, while superior in many ways, was flawed, built with assumptions that no longer held up in the face of humanity's creative adaptability. Every alien circuit he reprogrammed, every component he rewired, pushed the station toward something greater. Yet, with every success, new challenges arose. The station's core systems, though now stable, remained fragile. The strain of constant use, the weakness of certain alien components, and the never-ending isolation in the cold expanse of space were taking their toll. The most urgent of these problems lay in the station's cooling system. The reactor was generating power at a constant rate, but the lack of proper cooling made the system prone to overheating, putting everything at risk. If Marcus didn't act soon, the delicate balance he had worked so hard to maintain could easily tip into disaster. At first, he had hoped that the system could be repaired with the limited resources at his disposal. He had scavenged parts from every corner of the station, tools and equipment left behind by the Zulians, scraps from the decaying station, and even remnants from damaged machinery. However, as he explored the deeper reaches of the station, he began to realize the full extent of what was needed. The Zulians had designed their cooling system with such complexity that it was beyond anything he had seen before. It wasn't just a matter of replacing parts. It was a complete re-engineering project. Marcus could feel the pressure mounting. Time was running out, and with each passing hour, the cooling system grew more unstable. The constant hum of the reactor in the background felt like a ticking clock, reminding him that he had no time to waste. But Marcus, ever the resourceful engineer, wasn't one to give up easily. He set his mind to work, going over the blueprints of the system again and again, dissecting every part, every circuit, every cooling unit. The solution came to him after what felt like an eternity. He needed to use the station's own environmental systems, its atmospheric processors, to augment the cooling system. He had worked with similar systems before, but never on such a scale. The environmental processors were designed to regulate the temperature of the entire station, but they could also be adapted to function as auxiliary cooling units for the reactor. It was a risky plan, but it was his only option. With careful precision, Marcus began to reroute the power from the environmental processors, reprogramming them to work in tandem with the reactor's cooling system. He had to carefully balance the energy output of each system, making sure that the flow of power didn't overwhelm the delicate circuitry of either one. It was a fine line to walk, a high-wire act of engineering. But Marcus was determined. The weight of the station, its future, and his own survival rested on this decision. For what felt like hours, he worked tirelessly, reconfiguring the cooling circuits, adjusting the power feeds, and recalibrating the environmental processors. The task was arduous, but each small success propelled him forward. His hands were sore, his eyes strained from lack of sleep, but he refused to stop. As the final adjustments were made, he held his breath. He activated the system and waited. The reactor's hum became smoother, more stable. The once jittery readings of temperature and pressure levels began to steady. Marcus allowed himself a quiet exhale of relief. The cooling system had been successfully reworked. The station's reactor, now stabilized, hummed with a soft, rhythmic pulse, and the once fractured infrastructure of the station seemed to settle into place. But Marcus wasn't done. He knew the work didn't stop with the reactor. The station needed more than just stability. It needed to become a place of innovation, a symbol of human ingenuity and adaptability. The Zulians had their arrogance, but humanity had its resilience. And now Marcus was prepared to show the universe what that meant, expanding the horizons, a new vision for the station. With the reactor stabilized and the cooling system functioning, Marcus's next task was to enhance the station's communication array. The Zulians had left the station with a basic communication system, designed for limited transmission over short distances. But Marcus knew that if he was going to have any hope of contacting other ships, or even the Zulians, he would need a system capable of reaching farther into the cosmos. His eyes scanned the room as he formulated a plan. The station had a number of communication dishes, but they were all outdated and inefficient. They had been designed for low-range communication, but Marcus knew they could be reworked into a far more powerful network. The key would be increasing the sensitivity of the antenna arrays, allowing them to pick up even the faintest signals from across the galaxy. The process was far more complicated than anything Marcus had done before. The station's communication arrays were intricately connected to its primary power grid, and any change to one system had the potential to affect the others. Marcus carefully disassembled the first of the communication dishes, inspecting the wiring and the positioning of the antenna. He had no intention of simply upgrading the technology. The Zulians had already done that. He would go further, using a hybrid human-tech approach, blending Zulian components with human ingenuity. It took weeks of painstaking work, but one by one, Marcus recalibrated the communication systems. Each array was enhanced, each signal amplifier modified. The station's communication network grew more powerful, more precise. Marcus had no idea whether it would reach the Zulians or anyone else, but he knew it was the first step in making this station a hub of human achievement, a place where anything was possible. A moment of reflection. The cost of progress. One evening, as Marcus stood in the observation deck, looking out over the stars, He allowed himself a rare moment of reflection. The isolation, the endless hours of work, had taken its toll. There were moments when doubt crept in, moments when he wondered if anyone would ever come. The station was vast, its corridors now filled with the hum of technology, but it still felt like a lonely monument in the void of space. But then, as his gaze fell on the distant stars, Marcus reminded himself of why he was here. He wasn't just surviving. He was proving something. He was showing the universe that humans could endure, innovate, and rise to challenges no one had thought possible. The Zulians had underestimated him. They had abandoned him, left him to die in a failing station. But Marcus had taken their failure and turned it into something extraordinary. He wasn't done. There was more to be done, more systems to enhance, more technologies to adapt. But for the first time since he had been left behind, Marcus allowed himself to feel the weight of what he had accomplished. This station, once a forgotten wreck, was now a testament to human ingenuity. And Marcus knew that no matter what the future held, he had already made his mark. The heart of the station, turning the tables. By the time Marcus had stabilized the reactor, overhauled the cooling systems, and expanded the communication array, he had long surpassed the threshold of mere survival. The station, once a lifeless husk left to rot in the cold abyss of space, now thrummed with new energy, a pulse, an identity, built from the resilience of one human mind. The work had taken its toll on Marcus, physically and mentally, but he had never been more determined. His hands were calloused from endless hours of toil, his body weary from the weight of responsibility. Yet every fiber of his being was consumed by a singular mission: to prove to the universe that humanity could rise, even from the lowest of depths. He had rebuilt the station, not simply to function again, but to exceed the Zulians' expectations. The power core hummed with an unbroken rhythm. The life support systems provided constant oxygen-rich air, and the communication array was capable of sending long-range transmissions across the farthest reaches of the galaxy. The once weak and fragile vessel of Zulian's technological arrogance had been transformed into a living, thriving monument of human willpower. But Marcus knew he wasn't done. Now, it was time for something far greater: to reclaim the station's true potential. The Zulians, in their abandonment, had underestimated something essential about Marcus: the strength of his curiosity, and his refusal to accept that something was impossible. Their technology was far beyond anything humanity had ever seen, but it was built on assumptions that humans could overcome if they had the determination to break through them. The Zulians had designed this station with a singular purpose: to study the unknown, to harness the powers of the universe for their own benefit. Yet they had left it to decay. Now Marcus saw it differently. This station could be so much more. It could be the platform from which humanity could launch its own leap into the stars. The Zulians' final mistake. Marcus knew the heart of any station was its central control hub, the brain from which all systems originated and coordinated. It was here that the most advanced of the Zulians' systems were housed, the epicenter of their scientific experiments, their communication arrays, their computational resources. He had worked tirelessly to repair it, but he hadn't yet fully understood its potential. He approached the heart of the station with a sense of awe. The Zulians had designed the control center with layers of intricate protection, meant to shield their greatest secrets. The interface was beyond anything Marcus had ever seen, with layers upon layers of encryption, sophisticated neural patterns that adapted and shifted based on the data it processed. These designs were so alien to him that they initially felt impenetrable. But Marcus had grown used to challenges. Each time an obstacle presented itself, it was only an invitation to innovate, to adapt. The first few attempts to interface with the system were frustrating. The station's quantum processing cores, designed to process and manipulate information on a scale far beyond Earth's capabilities, rejected any attempt to override or even modify their functions. He had tried using manual overrides, using direct commands to take control, but the system remained locked. The Zulians had designed it to be self-sustaining. Without their code, the system wouldn't allow a human hand to control it. That's when Marcus realized what he had been missing. The key to breaking through wasn't brute force or hacking the system. It was understanding the logic, the very DNA of the code that ran the station. The Zulians had designed these systems to be independent of outside control. What Marcus needed was to adapt his own system of understanding, the human way of thinking. Instead of trying to break the code, he rewrote it. Using his knowledge of Zulians' technology, he began to map out their neural network, slowly replacing the alien code with simple algorithms derived from human engineering. It was a long, painstaking process, rewriting the control systems by hand, reprogramming each neural interface, while carefully testing to ensure that nothing catastrophic happened. Marcus knew that one wrong move could send the whole station into a critical failure. But he also knew that this was the only way forward. Finally, after days of laborious effort, Marcus had done it. He had rewritten the code. The system accepted his new algorithms. It wasn't just a small victory. It was a reclamation of the station, a turning of the tables. He had taken the Zulians' greatest weapon, their greatest technological achievement, and turned it into a human-controlled asset. The station's central hub now operated under Marcus's guidance, his touch. It wasn't just a machine anymore. It was an extension of him, a message to the stars. With the control hub in his hands, Marcus now had access to everything. He could reprogram the station's entire network, repurpose its research facilities, or even unlock any classified data the Zulians had left behind. The possibilities were endless, but Marcus's goal had always been clear. He needed to send a message, not just a message of survival, but one of human triumph. The Zulians had considered him insignificant. They had cast him aside, believing their superior technology and intellect made them untouchable. But now, with the control of the station firmly in his grasp, Marcus was prepared to send a message back to the Zulians. It wasn't just a message of defiance. It was a message of humanity's potential, of humanity's capacity to innovate, adapt, and overcome. He sat at the console, his fingers hovering over the keys. He knew the Zulians' fleet would be many light years away. But Marcus wasn't deterred. He wasn't going to let their arrogance go unchallenged. Slowly, carefully, he configured the station's long-range transmitter, tapping into every available power source. His message would reach the Zulians, no matter how far away they were. The universe would know what had been done here. The console beeped softly as Marcus entered the final commands. The transmission was set, the message ready to go. To the Zulians, he began, his voice unwavering. You abandoned me. You left me to die on this failing station, believing your technology was beyond my comprehension. You were wrong. I, Marcus Chen, have rebuilt this station, and I've made it better than it ever was. What you fail to understand is that humanity's strength doesn't lie in technology alone. It lies in our ability to adapt, to innovate, and to overcome. You thought you could leave me behind, but I am not the one who has been abandoned. I have reclaimed your legacy, and now it belongs to us. The message was sent. The station's long-range communication array powered up, sending Marcus's words across the expanse of space, all the way to the Zulians' fleet. The shift, waiting for the storm. Marcus watched the data flow across the control panel as the transmission went live. The hum of the station's systems filled the silence around him. For a long time, he just stood there, staring at the blank screen, waiting. Would the Zulians respond? Would they see the message as a challenge, or would they be impressed by what he had achieved? He had no way of knowing for sure. The Zulians had a history of arrogance, and it was hard to imagine that their pride would allow them to admit any fault. But Marcus didn't care. He had done what they thought impossible. He had rebuilt their failing station from the ground up, turned it into something greater than they could have ever imagined. It was a testament to human spirit, to human ingenuity. And now, it was time for the universe to see. As Marcus waited, he thought about what the next steps might be. Would the Zulians return? Would they challenge him? The station was far from complete. He had only begun to scratch the surface of its potential. But no matter what came next, Marcus knew that humanity's mark would be left here, on this forsaken station, an indomitable mark of resilience, strength, and ingenuity. And it would be the Zulians who had underestimated him. The message, defying the odds. The hum of the station had grown constant, like a heartbeat pulsing through the cold expanse of space. Marcus had spent weeks, no, months, tirelessly rebuilding this once-dying vessel. The Zulians might have abandoned him, thinking his human hands were incapable of understanding their superior technology. But with every turn of a wrench, every new system he rewired, Marcus proved them wrong. The station, now under his command, thrived where it had once been dead. He had taken the broken tools and materials left behind, the remnants of a forgotten race's failures, and turned them into a monument to human resilience. But now he faced a new challenge. It was time to send a message, not just to the Zulians, but to the entire galaxy. A message that would echo through the stars, a message of defiance, survival, and human ingenuity. The long-range transmission array hummed softly as Marcus prepared his message. He had long considered what to say, the right words that would communicate the scope of his achievement. He knew that a simple "I survived" wouldn't be enough. No, this was far more than survival. This was a triumph of the human spirit, a defiant stand against those who had thought him disposable. It was time for humanity to take its place among the stars. He stood before the console, his fingers hovering over the keys, and for a moment, his mind went blank. There was so much to say, so much to convey, and yet it had to be succinct, sharp, a message that would resonate not only with the Zulians but with anyone who might hear it. This wasn't just about him anymore. This was about humanity's place in the galaxy. His message would be a declaration, not just of survival, but of humanity's unyielding will to evolve, to adapt, and to conquer the impossible. He typed carefully, feeling the weight of each word as it appeared on the screen. To the Zulians, Marcus began, his voice calm as he typed, but his thoughts were anything but. I am Marcus Chen, a human engineer, and I have taken control of your station. You thought me inferior, too primitive to understand your technology. You left me to die, believing I could never fix what you had broken. But I am here to tell you that your arrogance was your greatest mistake. You left me behind, thinking you had won. But I have rebuilt this station, repaired your failing systems, and made it stronger than it ever was. What you fail to comprehend is that humanity's strength lies not in the technology we inherit, but in our ability to innovate, to adapt, and to survive. Marcus paused. He reread the message. It was bold, confident, everything he wanted it to be. He could already hear the Zulians' mockery in his mind, their haughty, dismissive tone as they received it. Your species lacks the cognitive capacity to comprehend our superior technology, they had told him. How wrong they were. He had defied their every expectation. He had taken their dying station and turned it into a symbol of human strength. He continued typing, the final part of his message. You thought I was nothing. You thought humanity was beneath you. But here I am, proving that you were wrong. This station, once yours, now stands as a testament to human ingenuity. It is a monument to what we can achieve when we put our minds to it. You may have superior technology, but you will never have the spirit, the heart, or the determination that humanity possesses. The station is mine now, and it will be a reminder of the power of the human will. Consider this a warning. Underestimate humanity at your own peril. With a final keystroke, the message was complete. He had crafted it carefully, each word a reflection of the journey he had been through. From the moment he had been left behind, abandoned to die alone in the cold emptiness of space, Marcus had known that he would rise again. And now he had. The Zulians would hear his words, and they would understand what humanity was capable of. Marcus leaned back in the chair, his hands resting on the edge of the console. The message was ready. Now all he had to do was send it. He took a deep breath, his chest rising and falling slowly as he thought of the galaxy beyond, of the Zulians' distant fleet. He didn't know if they would answer, if they would even acknowledge his message. But he knew that this station, his station, was a new beginning. It was a new chapter for humanity. No longer would they be the underdogs, cast aside and forgotten. Humanity was ready to step into the future, to claim its place among the stars. With a final press of the button, the transmission was sent. The long-range communications array fired to life, its energy resonating through the station as the message shot out into the vast expanse of space. Marcus watched the data stream across the screen, knowing that it would take time for the message to reach its destination. But it didn't matter. The message was sent, and now the universe would know that humanity was not to be underestimated. The waiting game. The seconds stretched into minutes. Marcus watched the console, waiting for any sign of a response. His fingers drummed softly on the armrest of the chair. He had done everything in his power to ensure the transmission was sent. Now all he could do was wait. But in the silence of space, waiting was never easy. The stillness of the station surrounded him. The once abandoned halls now filled with the hum of functioning machinery. It had taken everything he had to get to this point. Endless hours of repair, of adaptation, of survival. Now he would have to wait, not just for a response from the Zulians, but for the future to unfold. This was no longer about just proving the Zulians wrong. It was about setting a precedent for humanity. What had started as a single-man struggle for survival had become a turning point in history. He looked out the observation window once again, the stars twinkling like distant beacons of hope. Humanity had always looked to the stars with wonder and awe, but now Marcus knew that they would look back too. This station was not just his triumph, it was humanity's triumph. He had rebuilt it, but more than that, he had made it a symbol that no matter how far humanity had to go, no matter how impossible the odds, it could always rise, adapt, and overcome. But as he sat there, a faint buzz interrupted the silence, a low hum from the console. His heart skipped a beat. Was it a response? Had the Zulians received his message? Had they come to claim the station back, to punish him for his defiance? He quickly turned to the console, his fingers shaking slightly as he tapped the screen. The message was coming through, a data stream from the other side of the galaxy. It was faint, distorted by the vast distance, but it was unmistakably there. The Zulians were responding, and as Marcus began to read the transmission, he couldn't help but feel a deep sense of satisfaction. They had received his message, and now the real battle was about to begin. The return. A new chapter begins. The message was sent. Marcus sat back in the chair, his fingers still lingering over the console, waiting. The quiet hum of the station, now alive with power and purpose, felt almost oppressive in its stillness. The data stream he had received was faint, almost garbled, but the unmistakable signal of the Zulians' response had filtered through, confirming that his message had reached them. He had done what he set out to do. He had defied the odds, taken control of the station, and sent a clear message to the stars. But now, in the silence of the station, the question remained, what would come next? Would the Zulians come to reclaim the station, to punish him for his defiance? Or would they recognize the message as a challenge and perhaps extend an olive branch? Days turned into weeks, and Marcus continued his work. There was still so much to do. The station, once a crumbling relic, was now a living, breathing testament to human ingenuity. Marcus had made repairs, expanded systems, and upgraded the technology that had once been far beyond his understanding. The station was no longer the Zulians' hub of research. It had become a place of innovation, of possibility. But every now and then, as he worked, Marcus would glance toward the observation window, his mind wandering to what lay beyond. The stars stretched out before him, endless and unyielding. Would the Zulians come for him? Would they see his efforts as an affront to their superiority, Or would they recognize that he had created something even they could not have imagined? The Zulians arrive. It was a quiet evening, one of those rare moments when Marcus had taken a brief respite from his work. He sat in the control room, surrounded by holographic displays of the station's systems, sipping from a cup of synthesized coffee. The station's lights flickered softly around him, and for a brief moment, he allowed himself to relax. The weight of responsibility, the constant push to innovate and rebuild, had worn him thin. But there was still something so exhilarating about being at the helm of this grand project, this testament to human will. Suddenly, the quiet was shattered by a series of warning alerts on the console. Marcus's eyes shot to the display as it flashed with a cascade of information. Long-range sensors had detected ships approaching. Zulian ships. The readings were unmistakable. They were not here to ignore him any longer. The Zulians were coming back. A mix of emotions surged through Marcus's chest. Relief, excitement, and apprehension battled within him. He had sent his message. They had heard it. But what would they do now? Would they seek to reclaim the station by force? Would they see it as a threat to their superiority? Or had they come to acknowledge what Marcus had accomplished? Marcus stood, his heart racing as he began to prepare the station for the impending arrival. He had no idea how many ships were coming, how many Zulians would be at the helm, but he wasn't afraid. He had rebuilt this station not only to survive but to defend itself. The communications array had been upgraded to send and receive transmissions across vast distances, and the station's defenses were stronger than ever. If the Zulians came to take back what he had claimed, they would face more than just a broken station. The ships were growing closer now. The long-range sensors were tracking their approach with precision. Marcus knew he couldn't sit idly by, waiting for them to arrive. This was his moment to prove that humanity was not just a footnote in the vast expanse of the galaxy. This was his chance to show the Zulians that he wasn't just a survivor. He was a force to be reckoned with. He began to interface with the station's defensive systems, reinforcing the shields and ensuring that all power was allocated efficiently. The Zulians might have had technology that was more advanced than anything Marcus had ever seen, but he had something they didn't: human ingenuity. The weapons systems, though rudimentary by Zulian standards, were a testament to Marcus's ability to adapt. With each modification he had made, he had incorporated a little piece of humanity's spirit into the very core of the station. The encounter. The Zulians' fleet finally arrived. From the observation deck, Marcus could see the ships slowly entering the station's vicinity, sleek, powerful, and intimidating. They hovered there, as if waiting for the signal to approach. Marcus's heart pounded in his chest, but his mind remained sharp. This was the moment. The Zulians didn't communicate immediately. They were calculating, deliberate in their movements. He knew they were analyzing the station, determining its readiness, its capabilities. It was clear they hadn't expected him to have made it this far. But Marcus wasn't some helpless engineer anymore. He was the master of this station, and he was ready to face them. The console beeped, a soft tone indicating an incoming communication. Marcus's breath caught in his throat. He activated the transmission, and a Zulian commander's face appeared on the screen. The alien being was tall, with sharp features and eyes that glinted with an intelligence that Marcus had come to respect and fear. The Zulian commander's voice was calm, yet tinged with a hint of curiosity. "Marcus Chen," the commander began, "you've rebuilt our station. It's impressive. But you do realize that your actions come with consequences." Marcus stood tall, meeting the commander's gaze without flinching. The Zulians had come to evaluate, not to fight. Not yet. But they were watching him closely, waiting for a sign of weakness. He wasn't about to give them one. "I've done more than rebuild," Marcus replied, his voice steady. "I've transformed this station. It's no longer just a research hub. It's a symbol. And I'm not asking for your permission. Humanity will not be your subordinate." There was a pause, and Marcus could almost feel the weight of the commander's scrutiny through the screen. The silence stretched long before the Zulian spoke again, his voice colder now. "You've made a grave mistake. This station belongs to us. And by claiming it as yours, you've violated a fundamental law. You do not understand the consequences of your actions. You've taken something that was never meant to be in your hands." The words stung, but Marcus stood firm. The Zulians had underestimated him, and now they were trying to intimidate him back into submission. But there was no going back. He had shown them what humanity could do, and he wasn't about to back down. "This station is a testament to the power of humanity," Marcus said, "and it's not going anywhere." The commander's eyes narrowed, but Marcus could see the flicker of uncertainty in them. The Zulians had expected fear, or at least submission. But instead, they saw defiance, resolve. And that was something they didn't know how to handle. A new beginning. The conversation ended, and the screen went black. The Zulians had not initiated any immediate threat, but the tension was palpable. Marcus could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him. The fleet of Zulian ships loomed just outside the station's range, their dark shapes casting shadows over the surface of his newly reclaimed home. For a moment, Marcus allowed himself a breath, a brief pause to collect his thoughts. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. He had sent a message, and the Zulians had received it loud and clear. Whether they came to destroy or to negotiate, he knew one thing for sure. Humanity had made its mark on the stars. The future was uncertain, but Marcus had no doubt that humanity would rise, that the era of human submission in the face of alien superiority was over. The station was his, and from here, humanity would build. The Zulians had shown their true nature, and Marcus had shown them humanity's greatest strength, the unyielding will to survive, adapt, and thrive against the impossible. As the ships hovered silently in the distance, Marcus turned his gaze back to the stars, the vast unknown. The journey was just beginning, and humanity would not be left behind. The future. A new era of collaboration. The Zulians were here. The fleet of ships had entered the station's vicinity, their sleek forms drifting ominously in the cold void of space. Yet, as Marcus Chen stood before the control panel, he didn't feel fear. He had already faced the impossible. The Zulians had underestimated humanity, and in doing so, they had given Marcus something invaluable. Time to rebuild, time to prove that humanity's resolve was unshakable. The Zulians' message had been clear. Their station, their technology, their authority over this outpost in the galaxy could not be questioned. But Marcus had already rejected their premise. This station, which had once been a symbol of alien superiority, was now a living testament to human ingenuity. He had rebuilt it from the ground up, not to simply survive, but to thrive. And now it stood as a beacon, not only of human resilience, but of what could happen when humanity dared to challenge the status quo. The threat of war loomed, but Marcus refused to cower. He had fought for this. He had bled for this, and he wasn't about to let anyone, especially the Zulians, dictate his future or the future of humanity. His message had been clear, but so had theirs. But perhaps there was still room for something else, something greater than conflict. As he prepared to face whatever came next, Marcus found himself reflecting on the long road that had brought him here. It had started with a simple task, repairing an alien station, but what had emerged from that singular task had been something far more profound. He had not just repaired the station, he had redefined it. He had taken something broken, something abandoned, and made it his own. And in doing so, he had rewritten the laws of survival. The Zulians might have been technologically superior, but they lacked something essential, something that made them blind to the very nature of what he had accomplished. They had seen technology as an end, as a pinnacle of evolution, but they had failed to see that true power lay in the ability to adapt and innovate, to turn failure into opportunity. Humanity had a history of doing this. It was not just about building better machines. It was about creating meaning in the face of the void. An unexpected proposal. The The Zulian fleet had remained silent for hours, hanging in orbit around the station like an oppressive presence. But finally, as Marcus was about to initiate another round of diagnostics on the station's systems, a message came through. This time, it was not the sharp, dismissive tone he had come to expect from the Zulians. Instead, there was something different in the voice of the Zulian commander, an air of uncertainty, even respect. Marcus Chen. The commander's voice crackled through the comms. We have analyzed your actions. We have studied your work, your message, and we have come to a conclusion. Marcus felt a strange sense of unease flood over him. What could this mean? Had they come to negotiate, or was this simply another attempt at intimidation? You have proven, the commander continued, that humanity is capable of far more than we ever imagined. Your ingenuity, your ability to take what was left behind and breathe new life into it, has impressed us. You have turned what was once a symbol of our superiority into a monument to human perseverance. We underestimated you, and for that, we offer our apologies. Marcus's heart raced, his mind still processing the words. An apology? Coming from the Zulians? This was unprecedented. They were a species that prided themselves on their technological superiority and intellectual prowess, a species that had viewed humanity as primitive. To hear these words from the commander was shocking, almost disorienting. But the commander's voice didn't falter. We have watched as you rebuilt the station, using nothing but your hands and your mind. You've made it stronger, more resilient, and in doing so, you've made something that is now a beacon for all species to see. Perhaps it is time to reconsider how we view humanity, not as a species beneath us, but as one with the potential to stand alongside us, to collaborate rather than conquer. Marcus stood, frozen, for several long moments. The words reverberated in his mind. Collaboration. That was a word he had never thought he'd hear coming from the Zulians. He had always assumed that their response, when it came, would be to crush him, either with overwhelming force or with cold, superior logic. But this was different. This was something entirely new. The Zulians continued. We recognize that there is more to the universe than technology. There is understanding, compassion, and the ability to learn. And it is clear that humanity possesses a unique capacity for innovation, resilience, and growth. We extend an offer to you, Marcus Chen, and to humanity as a whole, a partnership, a collaboration. We propose that we work together, not as masters and subordinates, but as equals. A new vision for the future. Marcus could hardly believe what he was hearing. The Zulians, the very same species who had left him for dead, who had scoffed at humanity's abilities, were offering him a partnership. It seemed impossible, but the sincerity in the commander's voice told him that they were serious. This was not a trap. This was a new dawn, a new chapter for humanity. He took a deep breath, considering his words carefully before responding. I never set out to seek a partnership. I didn't rebuild this station to prove anything to anyone. I did it because it was what had to be done. Humanity doesn't need permission to grow, to explore, to take its place among the stars. But if you're offering collaboration, then perhaps this is the beginning of something new, something that benefits us both. There was a pause on the other end of the comms. Then, the commander spoke again, their voice softer but resolute. Then let us begin. Let this station be the first step toward a new era, one where we share knowledge, resources, and purpose. Humanity has shown us the power of creation, and now we will show you the power of unity. Together, we can achieve more than either of us could alone. For the first time in what felt like forever, Marcus allowed himself a smile. The weight that had been pressing on his chest for so long, this fear of failure, of being judged, of being rejected, began to lift. The station, the symbol of his hard-fought victory, was now more than just a bastion of survival. It had become the cornerstone of a new future. Humanity's future. The next chapter. As the Zulian fleet began to align their ships with the station, Marcus felt a surge of hope that he hadn't allowed himself to feel before. The Zulians were not here to conquer, to dominate. They were here to collaborate, to forge a new path forward. This was the beginning of a partnership between two species that had once been at odds. What would come of it, no one could say. But what mattered was that humanity, for the first time, had a seat at the table. The future was uncertain, but Marcus could now see a world where humanity was not just a participant in the galaxy, but a leader. And with the Zulians at their side, there was no limit to what they could achieve. As Marcus walked to the observation deck, looking out over the station and the stars beyond, he knew that this was just the beginning. The challenges ahead would be great, but humanity was ready. The Zulians had seen the power of human innovation, and now they would see the power of human collaboration. The future of humanity was brighter than ever before. And for the first time in his life, Marcus Chen truly believed that humanity's place in the stars was not just secure, it was limitless.